Have you ever wondered how one person, like a single stone dropped into a calm lake, can send ripples out across the entire world? Many years ago, a man named Genghis Khan did just that. He wasn't a king living in a fancy castle or a wizard from a storybook. He was a boy who grew up on the wide, grassy plains of a place called Mongolia. The world he was born into was made of many separate pieces, like a puzzle that hadn't been put together yet. But he had a dream, a vision of a world that was connected, and his journey would change everything, creating waves that we can still feel today, right here on this very day, August 8th, 2025. His story is a powerful reminder that even the smallest beginning can lead to the grandest of outcomes. The book, Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford, asks us to think about this incredible story. It tells us that sometimes the biggest changes come from the most unexpected places. Before Genghis Khan, the world was a collection of separate lands. People in China didn't know much about people in Europe, and people in Persia didn't know much about either. They were like kids playing in different corners of a giant playground, each in their own little world, unaware of the others. They had their own games, their own rules, and their own stories. They didn't often share their toys or their snacks, because it was hard to travel from one corner of the playground to the other, and sometimes they were even afraid of each other. Imagine a time with no internet, no phones, and no airplanes to whisk you across the globe in a matter of hours. The journey from one kingdom to another could take months, even years, and it was filled with dangers. Bandits might hide along the roads, and different rulers often fought with one another, making travel unsafe. This separation meant that wonderful ideas, amazing inventions, and delicious foods stayed locked away in one place. A clever way to make paper in China might never reach a scholar in Italy. A beautiful story told in Arabia might never be heard by a child in Russia. The world was full of walls, both real and invisible, that kept people and their knowledge apart from one another. This is the world that Genghis Khan and his people, the Mongols, stepped into. They were expert horse riders, as comfortable on horseback as you might be on your own 2 feet. They could ride for days across the vast open grasslands, which they called the steppe. They learned to survive in a tough environment, relying on each other and their deep understanding of the land. It was this skill, this connection to their horses and their home, that gave them the power to begin their epic journey. They were about to knock down the walls between the different corners of the playground and show everyone what could be shared, forever altering the course of history for all who came after them. So, who exactly were these people who changed the world so much? The Mongols were nomads, which is a fancy word for people who don't live in one single place. Instead of houses, they lived in round felt tents called gurs, which we sometimes call yurts. These homes were amazing because they could be taken down, packed onto carts or camels, and moved to a new spot in just a few hours. This lifestyle was perfect for the vast open plains of Central Asia, where they needed to move their herds of sheep, goats, and horses to find fresh grass and water. Their entire lives were built around movement, family, and a deep respect for nature and the big sky above. At the heart of this world was a boy named Temujin, who we now know as the Great Genghis Khan. His early life was very difficult. His father was poisoned by enemies, and his own family was cast out and left to survive on their own in the wilderness. He faced hunger, danger, and betrayal. But these hard times didn't break him. They made him stronger, smarter, and more determined. He learned how to bring people together, to make them trust him, and to lead them. He had a powerful idea that the warring Mongol tribes would be much stronger if they united as one big family, one nation, instead of fighting amongst themselves. This was a revolutionary thought for his time and place. Bit by bit, Temujin united the tribes. He didn't do it just by being the strongest fighter, but by being a fair and clever leader. He created rules that were the same for everyone, no matter how rich or poor they were. He promoted people based on their skills and loyalty, not just because they were born into a powerful family. By doing this, he earned the respect of many. And in the year 1206, all the tribes gathered and gave him a new name, Genghis Khan, which means something like universal ruler. He was no longer just the leader of a small clan, he was the leader of the entire Mongol nation, a people ready to follow him on an unbelievable journey. One of the most incredible things the Mongol Empire did was to make the world's biggest and oldest road trip safe for everyone. This road wasn't paved with yellow bricks. It was a network of paths and trails called the Silk Road. For centuries, this was the main route connecting the East, places like China, with the West, places like Europe. But for a very long time, traveling on it was a risky adventure. Robbers were common, and different kings who controlled different parts of the road would often fight, making it dangerous for merchants carrying valuable goods like silk, spices, and jewels. It was like trying to walk through a neighborhood where every block had a different grumpy gatekeeper. When the Mongols took control of the lands along the Silk Road, they changed everything. Genghis Khan and his successors understood that if trade was safe, their empire would become wealthy. So, they did something revolutionary. They created a passport system. It was a metal tablet called a paisa. If you carried one of these, it was like having a VIP pass. It showed that you were under the protection of the Great Khan himself. This meant that Mongol soldiers had to help you and keep you safe on your journey. Suddenly, the dangerous path became a secure highway, a superhighway of its time, guarded and protected across thousands of miles of desert and mountains. With the road now safe, an amazing thing happened. It wasn't just silk and spices that began to travel back and forth. Ideas, inventions, and stories started to move too. Imagine it like a giant game of telephone. But instead of the message getting mixed up, it got richer and more interesting. Gunpowder, invented in China, made its way to Europe, where it would eventually change how wars were fought. The compass, another Chinese invention, helped sailors in the West explore the oceans. Noodles from China traveled west and might have inspired pasta in Italy. It was a grand exchange of human knowledge, a worldwide show and tell on a scale never seen before. This incredible flow of goods and ideas was managed by a system of relay stations, almost like ancient post offices called the Yam. These stations were set up about a day's ride apart all along the major routes. Travelers could stop at a Yam station to get fresh horses, food, and a safe place to rest before continuing their journey. This system made communication and travel incredibly fast for the time. A message from one end of the empire could reach the other in a matter of weeks, not months or years. It was the Mongol Empire's version of high-speed internet, connecting people and places in a web of communication that made the world feel much smaller and more accessible. The Mongol Empire did more than just build roads. It built bridges between different cultures and people. For the first time in history, people from very different parts of the world could meet, talk, and learn from one another in a safe environment. A painter from Persia could travel to China and see their beautiful art. A doctor from the Middle East could share his knowledge of medicine with healers in India. The Mongols themselves were very curious and open-minded. They didn't try to force everyone to believe the same thing. In their capital city, you could find Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and people of many other faiths living and worshiping side by side, a level of tolerance that was rare in those days. This mixing of people and ideas created a burst of creativity and learning. Think of it like mixing different colors of paint. When you mix blue and yellow, you get a brand new color green. In the same way, when a mathematician from Persia shared his ideas with an astronomer from China, they could come up with new discoveries about the stars and planets that neither could have found alone. This period of peace and connection across the vast empire is sometimes called the Pax Mongolica, which means Mongol peace. It was a time when knowledge was the most valuable treasure, and it was shared freely across continents. Of course, the story of the Mongol Empire is not all peaceful. Their conquests were often brutal and violent, and many people suffered as the empire was built. This is an important part of their history to remember. But what rose from that conflict was a new kind of world. A world that was, for the first time, truly interconnected. They created the largest land empire in history, stretching from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Eastern Europe. Ruling such a huge and diverse area forced them to invent new ways of governing. They created a law code, organized a census to count people, and even established the first international postal system. All ideas that future kingdoms and countries would learn from. The lessons from this time are still incredibly relevant for us today. The Mongols showed us that when different cultures connect, incredible things can happen. They proved that sharing knowledge makes everyone smarter, and that protecting travelers and trade helps everyone become more prosperous. They remind us that even after conflict, it's possible to build systems that bring people together. In our modern world, connected by the internet and airplanes, we are living in a way that the Mongols first made possible. We are continuing their legacy of a connected globe, where an idea born in one country can change the lives of people on the other side of the planet overnight. Even though the Mongol Empire itself faded away many centuries ago, its echoes still shape our lives. The world we live in today, a place where you can eat pizza in Japan or watch a movie made in Korea, is a direct result of the connections first forged by those riders from the steppe. They didn't just conquer lands, they stitched them together into a single tapestry. They showed that it was possible for the world to be more than just a collection of isolated kingdoms. They planted the seeds of a global community, an idea that is more important now than ever before. Every time you use paper money, you are using an idea that the Mongols helped spread across the world. Think about the importance of religious freedom and tolerance. In many parts of the world today, we believe that people should be free to follow their own faith without fear. The Mongols practiced this idea over 700 years ago. Their leaders often had advisors from different religions and understood that a strong empire could be home to many different beliefs. This was a powerful lesson in a time when religious wars were common. They showed that diversity doesn't have to be a source of weakness. It can be a source of strength, bringing different perspectives and wisdom together to solve problems and build a more vibrant society for all people. The Mongols also teach us about adaptation and resilience. They came from the harsh, unforgiving plains and used the skills they learned there to master a vast and complex world. They were constantly learning, adopting new technologies like siege weapons from the people they encountered, and finding new ways to govern the diverse populations they ruled. This reminds us that the ability to learn, to change, and to adapt to new situations is one of the most powerful skills a person, or a people, can have. They faced incredible challenges, but never stopped moving forward, always looking for a better way to survive and to thrive in a changing world. So, as we look back at the story of Genghis Khan and his descendants, we are left with a powerful question. The Mongols used horses and a system of relay stations to connect the world in their time. Today, we have the internet, smartphones, and jet planes to connect us in ways they could have never dreamed of. We have the ability to share ideas, stories, and friendship with people all over the globe in an instant. The Mongols built the first truly global network. What will we do with the incredible global network we have today? How will we use our connections to build a better, kinder, and more interesting world for everyone?